February 3rd, 2023, Billings, Montana. Military veteran Dolly Mills Moore is finishing up her workday when out of the corner of her eye, she sees something zoom past her window. Check it out. There's what looks like a trail of smoke pointing toward the ground, as if something has crashed or been shot down. Several seconds in, a flash fills the sky. She's not sure what to think.
I was in, shock. I wasn't sure what I was witnessing or videotaping.
But she suspects it has something to do with that Chinese high-altitude surveillance balloon spotted over Billings just 2 days earlier.
I just kind of thought, what the heck? Holy crap, here we go again. What else is happening here in Montana?
Journalist MJ Benaya says the heightened state of paranoia sweeps Dolly's video into virality.
People started to ask natural questions. Is this another balloon? Is something happening? Are we being attacked? The next day, the U.S. Air Force shot down a Chinese intelligence gathering balloon. They shot it! Over the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of South Carolina. Shortly after that, over several days, multiple other objects were spotted and ultimately shot down.
A total of 3 UFOs are shot down by the U.S. government. So did Dolly capture a fourth? It wouldn't be Montana's first clash with UFOs. Malmstrom Air Force Base in Cascade County famously contended with strange airborne lights in 1967.
In the Malmstrom case, we have guards outside the facility. Suddenly, this red light appears over the base, and one by one, the nuclear missiles start getting turned off. So the launch capability was removed, and the entire system died.
Have those inexplicable UFOs returned? As you can imagine, the U.S. Air Force shooting down 3 unidentified objects in a matter of days caused quite a buzz among UFO believers. And get this, when Air Force General Glenn Van Herk was first asked about the shootdowns, he refused to rule out extraterrestrial involvement. But what will our experts say about this incident? We head first to aviation expert Tim McMillan to ask, could this be a spy balloon getting shot down? He notes that the city of Billings didn't report the crash of any such object at the time of the video, nor did the Air Force.
The U.S. military denies that this is related to any type of shoot down. And in order to have a contrail of that nature, you have to have some type of combustion processes going on. Balloons do not have any of these features.
So could it be a UFO getting shot down?
I don't see anything that's otherworldly about this video whatsoever. In fact, the exact opposite. We see something that is extremely consistent with a vapor trail or contrail from an aircraft burning off jet fuel that creates these clouds of condensation.
As for the sudden uptick in UFO, particularly UFO shootdowns, we can likely blame enhanced radar. U.S. officials confirmed that they boosted radar capabilities and more closely scrutinized U.S. airspace in the days following the Chinese spy balloon incident, which likely led to the increased detection of regular old airborne clutter.
Nothing that I see in this video appears to be inconsistent with a normal contrail that would be expected from a conventional aircraft. Even though it appears to be going down, I think that's just an artifact relative of where you're filming it. But in reality, it's traveling the curvature of the Earth.
But if it is just a regular plane contrail, why don't we see these things all the time? Meteorologist Juan Hernandez considers the conditions.
February 3rd, 2023 was a fairly chilly day in Billings, Montana. When we look at the satellite view, clouds covered much of the sky, which tells me that there is enough humidity that allowed for the development of contrails. That leads me to believe that the exhaust coming out of an airplane is releasing water vapor. The water vapor freezes fairly quickly and then creates a cloud.
That doesn't explain the big flash in the sky, but Hernandez has an idea.
During cloudy conditions, if you move the camera one way or another, the newer cameras will try to adjust for brightness. And I think that's what we're looking at here. That bright flash that we saw was the camera trying to correct for the changes in lighting.
Our verdict? Plane contrail, likely unrelated to the spy balloon that passed overhead days earlier. But we're grateful for Dolly's vigilance nonetheless. January 31st, 2022, a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket launches from Cape Canaveral, Florida, carrying an Italian Earth observation satellite. 200 miles south, a couple watches the launch from Fort Lauderdale. They're following the path of the Falcon 9 with their cell phones, when they notice the rocket is not alone.
Yeah, see those two things?
Two bright white dots of light appear to be following the rocket as it zooms through the atmosphere.
Doesn't it look like it's flying with it?
Yeah, that's going weird, yeah.
Let's zoom in on these things. The lights appear to be orb-shaped, and whether they're part of one craft or two separate craft, they appear to be tracking the rocket. Journalist M.J. Benaya says that rumors began to circulate that whatever they are, they're not of this world.
There's been a lot of speculation online that this is some sort of UFO that is monitoring or surveilling the Falcon 9 launch.
But why would aliens be interested in monitoring one of our rocket launches?
There's been some theories posted online that perhaps they want to keep tabs on our development.
The idea that alien observers track human activity isn't new. Ufologists point to the surge of sightings in the 1940s that coincided with the birth of the atomic bomb. It's estimated the year 1947 saw at least 1,000 UFOs over the United States alone. Now, with private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin stepping up their launch schedules, could ETs be taking note? If so, Benaya says it's not the first time.
Another incident was from 2021 on the crewed mission to the ISS that was launched by SpaceX. And people online were pointing to pieces of footage where there was some sort of little object following the main capsule.
As part of the Falcon 9 rocket separated from the spacecraft, a spherical object flew through the gap in a close call heard round the internet.
People were saying that these are indications of alien activity. So it's a big subculture within the UFO community at large of people who kind of monitor live feeds from rocket launches and NASA missions and whatnot, and assert that this is evidence of some sort of alien research or surveillance.
So, is Earth just one of the exhibits on display in some alien civilization's galactic zoo? Well, scientists estimate there could be about 100 billion other planets in our galaxy alone. So it's reasonable to assume we aren't alone in the universe. But does this video prove we're being watched? Let's see what our experts have to say. Aviation and military expert Tim McMillan agrees. There's something strange about this footage.
They're looking at a rocket as it leaves the Earth's atmosphere. You would expect to see what we're seeing there. However, you wouldn't expect to see other bright objects appear in close proximity to it. I could certainly see why that would look like a UFO.
But is it a UFO?
I think even though certain aspects look very odd, they're all man-made objects, and they're all associated with the Falcon 9 rocket launches. So we're not looking at a UFO, we're not looking at any alien technology or anything like that.
McMillan thinks these two lights may be rocket boosters, which separate from the rocket after their fuel has been depleted to minimize dead weight.
That type of debris is going to burn up as it's coming down, or you're just seeing the reflection off of it. So it may look brighter or larger than it really is.
But astronomer Mark D'Antonio begs to differ with McMillan's space trash theory.
These objects that we see here, they're not physical objects in the rocket stream. It's actually an artifact of the rocket plume. That's a low pressure zone beneath that rocket exhaust, and it's going to be subject to atmospheric changes. And those effects are the creation of these little tiny shock waves right here in the atmosphere.
D'Antonio shows us that you don't need a rocket launch to illustrate this same phenomenon in action. Natural turbulence can create the same effect.
A tornado is a very violent place. And as that funnel is twisting, you see that little transient white thing that appeared? What was that? That was an atmospheric effect caused by the tornadoes. Keep in mind that a rocket launch is going to produce similar effects. Among them, these two little supersonic shock waves that we see there from the location.
Our verdict, supersonic shock waves. D'Antonio's explanation of the atmospheric physics seals the deal. More and more rockets are being sent into space every year. So it looks like for now, we don't have to worry about being on display for aliens. We just have to bone up on our rocket tech and learn to recognize these shock waves when we see them. December 1st, 2022. Fredonia, Wisconsin. It's just before 11 p.m., and after working a long day, Ken B is out for a stroll.
So I was walking outside, and it's very dark. We do not have street lights or anything like that in the area.
Suddenly, something dashes above Ken in the night sky. So he pulls out his cell phone and captures this. A group of 4 lights quickly streak across the sky.
They appeared from behind me, went across the sky. You could see a little flash of light right before they disappeared.
Then 5 more lights, moving a little more slowly, make the same startling motion.
It was kind of a creepy experience. I'd be kidding you if I said it wasn't.
The following evening, Chris Nowak is 40 miles south in Greenfield, Wisconsin, where he records these mysterious lights in the sky.
They would pulse through and race incredibly quickly. It was like this charge of light that would go through from as far back as we could see in literally a second or two. It really seemed to defy logical explanation.
Did Ken and Chris witness the same mysterious phenomenon? Could it be alien? Writer Amy Title says it's not crazy to think so, especially if you know Wisconsin.
You can understand why someone would think this is something otherworldly, because Wisconsin has an incredible amount of UFO sightings going back to the 1950s.
Title notes that one of the most controversial sightings took place in the mid-1960s near Green Bay.
For 4 nights in a row, eyewitnesses observed and filmed UFO activity. But when they reported those incidents to the National Guard, all of their films were confiscated. In the years that followed, the individuals tried to figure out what it was they were seeing, but none of them were ever given straight answers.
Wisconsin has been a UFO hotspot for so long that over 70 years ago, husband and wife Jim and Coral Lorenzen formed a group known as the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization to document UFO cases from all around the state. Do these sightings qualify to make the list? Let's see what our experts say. Have Ken and Chris documented another extraordinary moment in Wisconsin UFO history? Rich Hoffman wants to believe, but in this case, he can't.
There's no instantaneous acceleration that was visible. These were consistently moving at not even hypersonic speeds. The lights were moving across the sky and going in a relatively normal pattern. There's nothing here that looks extraterrestrial.
Time to call in our super sleuth, science writer and video analyst Mick West. And right off the bat, he's sure this isn't any video trickery.
Chris and Ken's sightings are similar in that we see clouds in both videos, and we see lights that move around.
But it's the way the lights change shape as they move through the cloud cover that gives the biggest clue in Ken's video.
If you point a light straight up at something, it's a nice round spot. If it's at an angle, the further away they get, the more stretched out they will get. And as they get closer in, we see they get shorter and shorter.
This indicates the lights are being projected from a fixed point on the ground. But what about the jumpier lights in the Greenfield video?
We've all used a laser pointer and had our cats chase it. I think what we're looking at here looks like lights that are being shone up from below onto the clouds.
So what is the source of these lights? Ken and Chris's videos were filmed at different times and 40 miles apart. West investigates Ken's video first and learns of another eyewitness to his exact same sighting, so he plots the coordinates.
Now, the good thing is we have another witness. We know which road she was on, and we know roughly what direction she was looking in. So we can stick her location on the map, and she was actually in a very different location, way down here towards West Bend. So now we've got 2 lines of sight from 2 different people.
Knowing approximately where the lights came from, West makes a final call.
I contacted the local Chamber of Commerce, and they said the Flanders family have an annual light show, which they do for charity every year, and the location of it is more or less where these 2 lines cross. And they had spotlights mounted on the roof of the house, and it's, in every way, it is a match.
It turns out this alien invasion is just a celebration of holiday cheer.
I think that Ken was looking at the Flanders family Christmas lights, and I think that Chris was looking at a different set of Christmas lights about 40 miles away.
Our verdict, Christmas spotlights. It took some detective work, but we see that given the known cloud cover that day, West's interpretation makes sense. And since it was the season for holiday lights, we think that was the reason. February 2022, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Proof viewer Bruce Lawney is picking up his son to go to the hardware store. Their outing gets put on hold when Bruce spots a long, dark shape hovering high in the sky above them.
We looked up in the sky, and all of a sudden we saw this kind of anomalous feature and didn't know really what it is.
Look closer. As Bruce starts filming, his son Christian provides the color commentary.
What the is that thing? It's just worming through the air.
I mean, it took us back because at first it was horizontal, then it turned vertical.
It's turning.
And it looked between 40 and 60 feet long.
It's huge.
It was definitely not anything that I have ever seen.
Bruce was quick to reach out to us on Twitter because, as a fan of the show, he believes there's something else up there.
Actually, I'm a pretty firm believer in that, because even if you go back throughout history, you can see 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago depictions of objects in the sky that can't be explained.
As author Amy Title points out, almost every ancient culture has tales of strange, worm-like flying objects.
There are a lot of myths in different cultures concerning worm-like beings, although sometimes they're more serpents or dragons that can move through the sky.
UFO investigators wonder if these legends are how the ancients described UFOs. In 1561, observers in Nuremberg, Germany described an assortment of these objects: orbs, crosses, rods, and malleable strips. At the time, it was interpreted as a sign from God, but it's been speculated the objects may have been engaged in some kind of extraterrestrial battle. In our modern era, when people spot sky worms or other UAPs, they don't just pray, they often call the cops.
In April of 2022, above Lazy Mountain in Alaska, there was a sighting of a worm-like object in the sky. And there were enough eyewitnesses that police were dispatched to the area to see whether it was a UFO or a downed plane.
After finding no wreckage, state officials blamed the phenomenon on the Contrail from a New York-bound jetliner. But this strange object doesn't appear to have anything to do with a plane.
The way this thing spins around in the sky is unlike any aircraft I've ever heard of.
Let's take a closer look at that sudden rotation of the object. It's this counterclockwise motion happening right here that is really intriguing to us. If we time it, that's about a 180-degree turn in less than 10 seconds. So what kind of estimated 40 to 60-foot craft could make that speedy move? Let's see what our experts think. Aviation analyst Tim McMillan agrees there's something strange on Bruce's video.
It's certainly odd. It doesn't readily resemble an aircraft, a helicopter, or any type of object that you would typically see traveling through the sky. And there's no distinguishable pattern to its flight path.
What McMillan doesn't see is evidence of any of the dazzling, possibly alien tech documented in other UFO sightings.
You don't see any extreme speeds and then right-angled turns, instantaneous acceleration, abrupt deceleration. We don't see any of that. It moves very consistently with something that is either achieving lift or being propelled solely on wind motion.
If the object isn't controlled by aliens in space, is it possible it's controlled by a human holding a string?
Whatever this object is, it has a definite orientation it wants to maintain towards the ground, which would suggest there's something holding it down or a payload that's keeping it that way. So that would certainly be consistent with a kite.
If the apparent size of Blake's object makes the kite theory sound far-fetched, consider this. The world's largest kite, flown in the Middle Eastern nation of Qatar, stretches over 200 feet. That's large enough to potentially lift the kite flyer into the air.
You certainly could have a kite that would be oddly shaped like this, or perhaps a more conventional kite that has a long tail that's giving us this appearance.
Video effects designer and astronomer Mark D'Antonio agrees with many of McMillan's observations, but he does not agree with the kite theory.
This could very well be a solar balloon. Those are long and thin and black, like we see here. And because they're black and they're absorbing the sun's radiation, the air inside tends to get warm and it will start rising. The same principle as a hot air balloon. And so what people do with these solar balloons is they hold them out lengthwise, they let the sun heat it up, and eventually when it stands up, you kind of push it a little bit into the air, and off it goes up into the sky.
Our verdict, solar balloon. Or as Blake's son Christian would put it, a bleeping solar balloon. The color, shape, and way it moves seems pretty conclusive. Now, solar balloons can be dangerous to other aircraft, so always follow the FAA's guidelines if you plan to release one.